Hello everyone, so today I will be going over the point values of the pieces and kind of explaining the ideas behind why each piece is assigned a respective point value and what point values mean for that piece, and some more detail about why and what effect it has on your game. Starting off with the basic review, commonly the point values are as shown in the list, where queen has 9 points, rook has 5 points, bishop has 3 points, knight has 3 points, and pawn has 1 point. If you've noticed, the king is not on this list because usually the king isn't given a point value. It's obviously like not as powerful like a lot of other pieces, and more powerful than some of the pieces. The reason why it's not giving a point value is because it's basically priceless. It's like if you lose the king, you lose the game. So the king is always the number one priority, which means it's kind of like infinite, right? Okay, the points are given mostly in order of how like powerful each piece is. So pawn is like not that like powerful. It moves like 1, maybe 2 squares, and doesn't have that much mobility and ability. And on the other side, the queen is can move in the most amount of squares in pretty much any given position, and is very powerful, and so that's why it's given the most point values, most points in the scale. In the middle, there's rook, bishop, knight, and these three pieces are not actually that far off from each other in terms of point values. The rook is given more value because yes, it is more powerful in overall, as in it can move in more squares than the bishop and the knight, and definitely has more potential. However, in the early game, bishop and the knight is easily more valuable than the rook, mostly because the rook is not actually like playing; it's like stuck in the bottom rank, waiting to get activated. The bishop and knight true value, which I'd like to say is like how value they are to your piece, not actually like what the scale says. Heavily depends on your position. For example, if you have like a really close position, which means like there's a lot of pieces, there's pawns covering like pretty much every square, especially in the center, and there's not that much mobility, a bishop is kind of useless and a knight is really good. On the other side, if the position is really open, so there's really few pieces, and there's a lot of open space in the center, then the bishop is really good and the knight's really bad. The reason why is because the knight can control a lot of squares in a small area around it, whereas a bishop can control large swaths of area, like kind of like a rook as well. It can control diagonals, which extend all the way to the other side of the board. Which means if the board's open, the bishop can control the full diagonal. If it's closed, it can't. And the knight is not that good for open positions because it can't really move to the other side of a board that fast. It takes like 3 to 4 moves. Whereas a bishop can just, if the position is really open, it can just move to the other side in 1. Additionally, value of a bishop also changes if there's a bishop of the other color. This is called a bishop pair. And then this increases the value of the bishop by a lot because 2 bishops together control both colors, which means they can potentially control the most diagonals in the chessboard, which is really useful. The bishop and the knight also can be a lot more valuable than the rook, especially in closed positions. The knight has a lot higher chance of being valuable than a rook. Here I'm on an open board, so if you look at this position, the bishop and a knight, bishop can go to the other side of the board in 1 move. The knight takes 4 moves, which means in an open position, the knight is a lot worse than the bishop. But however, let's say we add a lot of pawns. This position would be considered really closed because pawns are covering most of the board. And if you can see, this bishop is kind of trapped. It can't really go that many places. It'll go all the way here, but if say the king is here for black, this bishop is kind of dead. It can't really do anything. However, this knight can easily just go here, and although it takes a lot of moves, it doesn't matter because it's a close position, so it's okay. The knight's a lot better. Besides this, there's some like piece combinations that come up along that I'd like to discuss. Most of the stuff will be like in general, but obviously the actual like situation is most important in determining the value. So let's say we have 2 rooks and a queen. This is actually like probably the heavily dependent on your playstyle and like the position. If the rooks are connected, then the 2 rooks are probably better than queen. However, if they're separated like this, both sides have like a bunch of pawns, then I would say the queen is personally better. Another situation, and this would be the 2 rooks are worth more. The 2 rooks are worth 10 points, the queen's worth 9 points. Another situation would be like a bishop and a knight and a rook, or a rook and a pawn. Almost this is pretty like clear cut, although obviously there's some like exceptions. In the middle game and then the opening, the 2 minor pieces are just knights and like bishops, are better than the rook and the pawn. However, in the end game where the position is a lot more open, the rook and the pawn is usually better. One last example would be rook and bishop versus queen. I'm mostly going to talk about this more because like the move moving ability of queen. A queen is actually the combination of the rook and the bishop, and if you notice, the rook and the bishop is combined worth 8 points, the queen is worth 9. The reason why the queen is worth 1 more is because putting both those abilities in one thing is easier than, and gives you more flexibility than having it in 2 different pieces. So anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and hopefully I see everyone in the next video.